Your final presentation for this class is similar to writing like a final paper for maybe another class. So it's really the compilation of everything that we've done this semester in terms of your research project. So consider each discussion board that we've done, your research check-in number 1, your peer review of the research table that you did for research check-in number 2, and then ultimately this puts together the 6 articles that you've decided on and really helps you answer your research question with your thesis statement, but defends ultimately why you came to that thesis statement. So for the final presentation, you'll have a few introductory slides. So the introduction is kind of a general intro with maybe an opening statement, some background info that would be helpful for the listener to think about as they go through your presentation. So if you're doing like a diet, you might give them some background information on the diet. So this is what the Mediterranean diet is. Here's what the Mediterranean pyramid looks like, et cetera, et cetera. So lots of pictures, very visually stimulating, and a nice introduction to your presentation. Then, just like in a paper, your introductory paragraph always ends with your thesis statement. So your thesis statement is really the roadmap for your entire presentation. So again, per our previous modules, you want to make sure that that's as detailed as possible. So it might seem really long, but the more details, the better, because ultimately if something comes up in the body of your presentation that your listener wasn't expecting, it's like, well, why wasn't that mentioned in the thesis statement? Then you move into the body of your presentation, and this is really where you're talking about each of your research articles. So you'll have 6 slides in this section, basically 1 for each research paper. So consider everything that you put in your research table and really focus on like a high level presentation of each article. So just focusing on those key pieces. So who was in the study, how long were they on the diet, if that's what you're looking at, what were some key pieces to the methods, what were the results, were they statistically significant, and then some type of why this is valuable to your ultimate study. So that should be kind of clear that it supports the thesis statement with that one. So you're really interpreting and synthesizing all of your findings from each article. Remember, no direct quotes or plagiarizing from the original research paper. Everything should be in your own words. So if you did well with that on your research table, I would expect that you could use a lot of the same information that you had in the research table on this slide. That ultimately was the reason for doing those tables. So you'll have 1 for each article, kind of talking through everything. Then in your conclusion, this is really your chance to kind of bring it all together. So ultimately, why did you come to the answer that you came to for your research question? Why is maybe one answer the best answer? Because you may have had results that may not have been statistically significant. So why ultimately should someone go on this diet or not go on the diet? And then identifications of gaps in the literature. So what is missing? What would you like to see more of? Future research, things like that. So just think outside of your box. What else would you like to see that you did not see when you were looking at the research articles? So the conclusion is really your big chance to kind of cross-compare your 6 articles that came previously. So what did you see similar? What did you see different? How did it all come together? Then you'll have your reference page in AMA style. That's just 1 slide. So note that your references throughout your paper, so if you look back here within the body of your presentation, note that everything is numbered, and that citation corresponds to number 1 on your reference list. So the first source that you cite in your presentation becomes number one. It's not in alphabetical order on your last page. It's an order in which you talk about it in your presentation. So you're numbering each of those. So you'll have at least 6 citations, unless you cited like a website or something else in addition to your 6 primary research articles. Then a website could be number 7, etc. So when you're formatting, you should have an opening slide with just your name and your research question. Lots of visuals throughout, make it pretty, make it visually appealing. You're having your 6 primary peer-reviewed research articles. Again, refer back to your professor's comments on your research check-in number 1 and number 2, because ultimately there was comments as to whether or not your articles were appropriate or not. There is also a voiceover with this. So in this class, we're going to use the VoiceThread tool to do your voiceover, and there's instructions on how to use that. If you want, you can also do voiceovers in PowerPoint. So that is also an option. The voiceover is worth 15 points. So ultimately you can decide to do it or not to do it. I do think it can help explain your research, but again, optional. So then if you look at the criteria here, we're looking at interpretation of the research, the conclusion, your ability to kind of put it all together, your citations, and integrity of writing, and your voiceover. I'll also add a criteria for visually appealing, because I would like some pictures and for it to look nice. So that'll be worth a few points as well. There will also be an example of a presentation that I will do just for you to look at and see how it could be done.